Hi, John. How are you this week?
Hi, Elliot. Good. Back from San Francisco, we had the West Coast AML Forum that um, Chuck Taylor and myself and Tim White have been involved in for quite a long period of time, and it was well received. As we've talked about, our program, the AML Partnership Forum, is an attempt to base on that model. So this is the original model. Strong support from IRS and other aspects of law enforcement. And next year it'll be their 30th event. So that's a pretty impressive run that they've had. And again, it's all about what we're trying to do here, partnering, private-public partnership, which is so important to our community. So another good program.
Yeah, it's great. I know that you and Chuck both talked about how successful it was, and the whole partnership issue. I mean, you and I have been talking about it and working on it along with lots of others for many, many years, and I think there's definitely good forward progress. So that's really critical. So this week I saw in The Economist an article with the intriguing title, "Why is London so attractive to tainted foreign money?" I wonder if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw it. And what was interesting on many, many levels was they go into obviously detail about the reaction of the UK to the Ukrainian attacks by Russia, but looking at oligarchs, but making a pretty strong statement that London has been a haven for dirty capital, dirty money for a long period of time. Not unlike some places in the U.S., by the way, or other countries. So they looked at how this all started. There was a sort of a welcome mat situation where you would get visas if you invested money. That started under the Prime Minister John Major at the time, so in the early 90s. They talked about legislation something that passed fairly quickly, a couple of weeks after the invasion of Ukraine, and they asked the question, will this matter because there's so much that's already there. So yeah, I think any of us that are in the community that we're in would be well served to take a look at this article.
Yes, I agree. As in most jurisdictions where that we've talked about, and certainly that others have talked about in terms of hiding money or facilitating dirty money being moved. There is, the article talks about a particular facilitating methodology called the Scottish Limited Partnership, which again, like many of the vehicles we've talked about in the US and others, you have a lack of disclosure of actual ownership and no requirement to track source of funds and all of the other things that make it easy to do this. There was also some really interesting things about kind of the gatekeeper issue. And as you and I talked before we started recording, this, when you read through this article in the end, if you're going to put it in one category, this is again all about gatekeepers, people who, lawyers, accountants, and others, bankers in some cases, who for a fee, often an exorbitant fee, are willing to step outside of their ethical or legal obligations and assist people for a payoff. And I'd love to say it's not happening, but it is happening, and in all different ways, on the litigation front, on the structuring front. And so there was a quote in here, which I probably now won't be able to quickly put my fingers on.
Well, I think they say the penalties for banks, lawyers, and other enablers of dirty money are paltry. And then they say lawyers, you may be looking at this one, lawyers who turn a blind eye can expect no more than a rap on the knuckles, is what they say. And
yeah.
There's also a reference to a 2021 report by Chatham House that was called "The UK's Kleptocracy Problem," And basically, it's interesting, and folks in the U.S. will recognize this. It says that Britain's adopted, quote, a risk-based, unquote, approach to anti-money laundering. So much of the policing is with the banks, lawyers, and others in the private sector. But this is another good quote from the report. Failures of enforcement or implementation of the law, plus exploitation of loopholes by professional enablers, have meant that little has been done in practice to prevent wealth and agendas from entering Britain. So there's a number of studies besides the article in The Economist that point to this and seem to sort of cast a questionable look, if you will, on whether these laws that they're trying to pass now, I guess they passed one on anti-corruption a couple months ago, but whether there'll be enough behind it, resources, enforcement. The pay is fairly paltry from what they suggest as well. So again, I don't think it's overstating us to say that we've recognized that this has been a problem in London. But as they point out in the same article, it's also been a problem in our own country. And they talk about a number of countries that have issues similar to the UK. And they say, for example, in the United States, New York skyscrapers and Miami condos, they say, are awash in corrupt capital, especially from Latin America. And then they point out what you and I point out many times. Delaware, Nevada, they allow these shell companies. And South Dakota does as well in terms of trusts. And that's why we have the beneficial owner debate, the question, will the registry be impactful, that sort of thing.
Yes. There's also, it was interesting to me as a lawyer that there are a number of provisions in UK law that I'm sure were not put in for this purpose, but do end up facilitating some of it. One is that the loser of a civil lawsuit in the UK, pardon me, has to pay the other side's legal fees. And so part of what happens, according to the article, is that top law firms representing some of the bad actors charge exorbitant fees on because they believe that they'll have an opportunity to collect those fees and encourage the client to pay those fees because they believe they'll win, often because they outmatch the the other side, and so it just encourages what we might call unnecessary litigation here in the United States. And there are states in the US who have explored that type of law, and it would be nice if they saw some of the unintended consequences that we're seeing in the UK.
I agree with that. So folks should take a look at the article. It's in the most recent edition of The Economist. Why is London so attracted to tainted foreign money? And it's under the coverage of Britain/dirty capital.
Right. So we have one of our monthly webinars is coming. It's on May 26th. It'll live stream at 1:00 Eastern time. And it's going to be a great conversation on sanctions, not just the mechanics, but also talking about some of the foreign policy and international relations implications of sanctions. So I'd encourage people to register for that. You can do that at our website, amlrightsource.com. John, anything to pitch this week?
No, but if just a warning to folks, if you wanted to use Elliot's sneezing for your ringtone, you'll have to pay him at least $1 every time you do that. So think about that before you record and listen to the recording. So I just wanted to make that point.
Well, thank you. Now that you've said that, I won't have it edited out. So
that's right. No, you can't have it edited out. It's proving that we do this live. So
that's true.
That's the beauty of having conversations. So that's right.
Right.
We're good. I have a couple of podcast interviews scheduled in the next week or so. So we will talk more about that after they're complete. Several folks that Some are already are in the government, some that have gone to the private sector that have expertise in a number of areas. So more to come in the next couple of weeks.
All right, sounds good. You have a good rest of the week, and we'll talk next week.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye bye.